Yes, it's John G. Sutton, Tales from the Jails. I'll talk today a little bit about a story that's in the news about a guy who lost his eye in an attack in HM Prison Durham. The offender was a man called Derek Pallas, Pallas, aged 39 years. He was originally charged with murdering a man in a place called Billingham in Teesside, in which he'd murdered somebody called Peter Gilling. And while he was in HM Prison Durham for that offence, he got a razor blade. You know, I mean, a big tough guy. Got a razor blade. Got one of his colleagues, one of his oppos, to hold this man down. So they had this guy. This guy was practically defenseless. Yeah, and he hit him with the razor blade in his hand into his eye, and took out or slashed his eye, his left eye. Yeah, with the fist into his left eye. Yeah, he was sentenced to life imprisonment for the murder. And the poor guy that lost his eye, yeah, well, he got 11 years for that. Derek Pallas. Yeah, that's the kind of violence that does take place in prisons. But people use razors. When I was there, they used to issue razor blades, and ordinary wind up the old fashioned razors, you know. As you can see, I don't need to use one. It's just grown on me, you know. When I was at the Scrubs, there was a guy there, don't know what his idea was, but there was a sex offender on D Wing who was attacked, and I don't know quite how it had happened, but the guy had gone into his cell and absolutely done him in on his own, but done him on his own in his cell. And he came down to the landing office and he said, "That's one off, boss." I said, "What do you mean there's one off?" He said, "That's it's off. Take it, he's off the register now. He's not with us anymore." And the guy was on the floor in his cell, dead. Retribution in prisons, yeah, attacks. It happens all the time. I was in the Scrubs, and one day this guy came. I wasn't personally dealing with this, but the guy, what he'd done was he'd been a sex offender, and he'd been on the sex offending program, which they were running at the Scrubs. I'll tell you a little bit about that. Have you ever seen a film called Clockwork Orange? Yeah, where they show the scene in the prison where Malcolm McDowell, who's playing the part of the thug, is being in front of a TV screen and showing all these horrific images of people being tortured and naked women being attacked, and he has his eyes forced open with clips. They were doing that at Wormwood Scrubs when I was there, and the doctor who was in charge of it said to me, "You can try this if you want." So I said, "I'll try it." You know, I wouldn't have my eyes forced open, but they sat me in the seat and wired me up with all the electrodes, because that's how they did it, you know, like, was it called an electroencephalograph, yeah, where they put all these wires over you and attach them to your head and all that. And then he started showing me all these horrific images on the screen. It lasted for about a minute or so, a couple of minutes perhaps. Absolutely horrible things, yeah. And at the same time, the ECG machine is reading what my brainwaves are saying, you know. Anyway, when I finished that, he said, "What do you think about that?" I said, "It was absolutely horrendous." He said, "Well, I've had a look at your results." He said, "And I think, Mr. Sutton, that you could be actively homosexual. I thought, I'm out of here quick. Yeah, no more experiments on John. Let me tell you that. So I beat a hasty retreat. Yeah. And got out of there. But they were doing that at the Scrubs. Anyway, this guy had been under this program where they gave them steroid drugs to kill their sexual drive, to reduce the testosterone level. Yeah. And this guy had started to develop breasts. You know, he was a big fellow. He started to develop breasts. And he just kind of cracked it. He went into the recess on, I think it was D3 landing, and chopped his genitals off with a razor, razored his own todger off, and flushed it down the toilet. He was hospitalised. I don't think it grew back. But those kind of things happen. One of the big attackers of people who commit sex offences is a guy called Charles Bronson, who you all will no doubt know of Charles Bronson. I think he calls himself Salvador now, does he? Or something like that. I'll tell you that story about Charles Bronson. About 30, yeah, it was 1990. I wrote a big article for The Guardian newspaper. It was called Loose Screws. It was published on the 6th of June 1990, following the Strange Ways riots in April of that year. The Guardian asked me if I'd write an article about what I considered to be the reasons behind the riots. And it was basically abuse by the staff. You know, there was a clique in Strange Ways that was abusing the inmates, pissing in the soup, kicking them up and down D1, generally making life hell. And I tried to explain to them, you just cannot treat people like this and not expect to get some retribution. And of course, it happened. I mean, there was big newspaper articles that I'd done. I mean, and I was a serving officer at the time, but the way I managed to do it was I was the elected General Secretary of an independent trade union called the Prison Force Federation. And the statutory law of this country stipulates that any official, any elected official of a trade union may not be inhibited from promoting that trade union. In other words, my employer, the Home Office, could not inhibit me from going on television or writing articles in the press to promote the trade union, which is what I did, much to the chagrin of my personal good buddy, Mr. Norman Brown. Yeah. So anyway, as I was saying, this big article came out, double-page feature in the Guardian, the national newspaper, and somebody rang me up from Wakefield. They said, do you know that Charles Bronson's got your article on his cell wall? He's marching up and down, pointing at it, and laughing at the staff. He must have been getting the Guardian, you know. Imagine that. But Charles Bronson, notorious for attacking sex offenders numerous times. I mean, the staff at Wakefield and all, they keep him away from sex offenders. But let me tell you this, at Strange Ways, they had a couple of heavies, inmates, that the staff used to set loose and tell them where the sex offenders were, because, I mean, that's maniacs. Madness. The inmates have no chance. I mean, these hitmen, you know, they're going in, dragging these people into the recess and beating the living daylights out of them. Quite why this guy got his eye gouged out and with a razor blade, I don't know. But I know that it happened. And it's in the news today. Don't take my word for it. Go onto the news, BBC News, type in Derek Palace, HM Prison, Durham. Gouged somebody's eye out, smashed their eye out with a razor blade. whilst one of his colleagues held the victim down. And that is today's Tales from the Jails. Hey, subscribe. It helps me. I'm told it does. Thank you.